welcome to Elizabeth's Healing Path. Am I the only one who owns like a ton of aprons on top of other aprons I've made, but I never wear them? so here I am in my pumpkin apron. Today we're going to be making a pie. So for my massage business, we had a little pie making contest this year. And the winner made a pumpkin / sweet potato pie. So I'm going to make this recipe for you real quick. It was one of those recipes where she's like, I don't know, I just kind of threw this in and that in. I'm like, that's not really a shareable recipe. So hopefully we will nail it. Okay, so first things first is the crust. So it's a gluten-free crust. I have some gluten-free flour here. And it's 2.5 cups of flour. I will say you will have some dough left over from this, depending on if you want to put some decorations. That was 2. Hold on, let me count. These are half cups. So 3, 4, half. So 2.5. If you just depending on if you want to put some decorations on the top of the pie or not. So it is. See, it's designed. This recipe is designed to be a double crust recipe. But I want to say that it's a double crust recipe. I picked up a gluten-free. I always pick up gluten-free crust just in case I mess them up. I don't feel like dealing with crust. So usually when they say it's a double crust recipe, this is the size that you're gonna make. And see, it's kind of shallow and a little bit small. Well, this is my pie pan. Like you can see, like it actually fits inside of it. So I find when they say double crust, it's not a full double crust in this recipe. So just to give you a heads up. So this is a gluten-free crust recipe. So it will make 2 pies if you do a nice small pie, or I find it's like 1.5 for that. Okay, so I have my crust. I'm just gonna put a little smidge of sugar. This is so all the only sugar I keep in the house is maple sugar. They did not use maple sugar, but this is what I have, and I find it's a pretty good 1-to-1. A little bit of salt. And our fat. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on this food processor. You can also do it old-fashioned and kind of cut the fat. I like to just stick it through that hole. So I'm going to pulse this to mix that. And then we're going to add our fats. Now you can use butter if you wanted butter. I mean, you could even use shortening. I'm not going to stop you, but it is a vegan crust. So what was used in this recipe is half a vegan butter. I'm using Miyoko's, my favorite butter. So we're using half a cup of Miyoko's and half a cup of palm shortening. Now, the reason I do this is because the butter adds the flavor, but the shortening really adds a nice texture. Now, palm shortening is kind of a hot button issue for some people. In my research, the palm industry is nothing compared to what is going on with the meat industry in the rainforest right now. The destruction they're doing is so, quote unquote, like the destruction is so minute compared to how much of the forest is being destroyed so that we can actually get cheaper and more meat, because they're starting to run out of land for meat. So I rarely ever use palm shortening, only this time of year. And actually I have a huge jug I bought to make paleo frosting, and I still haven't used that up. So I'm trying to use that up. So I'm using half and half. If you want to use all of the Miyoko's butter or the vegan margarine, whatever works for you. Either way, what I did is I actually cut it up and then froze it. fine texture. You don't really see the butter anymore. And once it's like that, which was the perfect amount of time for me to get this all in, you want to start adding just a little bit of liquid. You don't want to do too much. I find one of the things I love to add in making pie crust is you want to add a little bit of alcohol, because the alcohol will evaporate and create a flakier crust. I'm using bourbon vanilla that I've made. I'm just using 1 tablespoon. And then I'm going to start turning on some cold water here. And I'm going to add a couple teaspoons of water as well. Now I'm going to turn it on because I want it to run so I can see this. Give it a chance. You don't want to add too much. This says 4 tablespoons. You might not need the 4 tablespoons. And we do. I'm just going to add this last tablespoon. Okay, now it's really best if you don't have so much clutter from your lunch on your counter. I also just made some figgy puddings, so I got some figgy puddings cooling on the stove over here. So it's best to let your crust rest. So I'm going to, got some parchment here. You can use saran wrap. I really don't use saran wrap. I mean, I've got it hidden away somewhere. But I also use this when I roll it out, so I find it to be convenient to just use that now. So because I want to speed this process along, I'm going to throw it into the freezer to rest. You don't need to do that, and sometimes if you leave it in there too long, it really makes rolling it a pain in the butt. I'm actually just going to put it in the fridge. And you can make 2 discs at this point if you want to. I'm just making 1 disc, and I'm going to throw it in the fridge. Hidden away from the Christmas sugar cookies. I don't want to get those 2 things confused. Okay, so now we're going to do our filling. I'm just going to go ahead and use the food processor. I mean, it's dirty anyway. So the person in the recipe, that did the recipe, she actually did a pie pumpkin. I totally don't have a pie pumpkin. So I'm just going to use canned pumpkin. And this is organic pumpkin. It's not like pie filling. Man, I need a new can opener. Okay, so this is organic pumpkin, and so this is 15 ounces, and we're just going to shove this whole thing in. Now, most of their pumpkin comes from Illinois. Fun fact. And it's not really a pumpkin, it's a squash. So in this recipe, she had enough for 2 pies, so I had to cut back the recipe. Like I said, it was fun to play with this recipe and be like, this isn't a recipe you're giving me. These are ideas and thoughts. Okay, so I have the pumpkin in there. And then she used 1 sweet potato, which this is actually 2 sweet potatoes. I'm just going to throw this in here. Yeah. So 1 can of pumpkin, 1 cooked sweet potato. Then I have my spices. This is pumpkin pie spice and cinnamon. Put a little vanilla extract in. Okay, vanilla extract. Pinch of salt. I'm actually going to start blending this now, and then I'm going to add in the sugar. So it's 1 cup of sugar. Feels like a lot of sugar, but it's half a cup. And last thing is just a little bit of tapioca starch. 2 tablespoons. Let me see if I can get a measuring spoon that isn't a little bit wet. You could also use cornstarch. It's to kind of hold it all together. Let me get rid of these guys. Scrape down the sides. Now you definitely don't need to use the food processor to do this. You could use a whisk. I mean, it's a bit overkill, but it was dirty anyway. It smells so good. Now I'm kind of like wondering, like, is this enough to fill? It should be enough. It's not an accurate measurement. If you didn't feel like it was enough, you could definitely add in a little bit more sweet potato. But I think we're good. Fingers crossed we're good. Okay, so when it comes to maple sugar is expensive, so I understand it's not an investment you want to make. I find it forces me to use less of it, so I don't eat so much sugar when it's and keep in mind, one of the reasons cane sugar can be so bad for us is because, you know, the huge spikes in insulin and things like that is because they're empty calories. Maple sugar does still have some vitamins and minerals in it. I actually feel like it's a great hydrator, maple sugar or maple syrup. And to stall one more time, what I'm going to be putting, I don't like making things if someone else makes it better for cheaper. You know, like I've started making my own toilet bowl cleaner because it costs like $1 to make and it's natural and it does a really good job. And I tried making my own laundry soap and it did an okay job, but it wound up costing me the same amount of money. I'm like, screw that, I'm buying laundry detergent. So I would say that Cocoa Whip is like that for me. I think it's a good price and it's a really good product. And yeah, so this is going to be going on my pumpkin pie. So like I said, I would normally maybe roll out the sugar cookies I have in my my fridge right now before I went into this. What this is a silicone mat, and it has like the circles of like how big your pie thing needs to get. So I kind of like this for pie. I can use it for the sugar cookies and things like that. And so it's non-stick, so I don't have to be using so much flour to roll it out, if any. And now I'm going to put a parchment on top of it so that when I roll it out, I don't usually need to. Actually, I should put a little bit of flour on the bottom of this, just a little bit. So, like I said, sometimes I can make a really rockin' pie crust, and other times I switch over to the frozen one in the freezer. No judgments. This one actually seems a little on the dry side, so it's probably going to be challenging. for me. You can't make everything awesome. Pie is really one of those things I only make once a year. So I'm okay that it's not my star performer. It still tastes good. That's what I was talking to someone. I said, you know, it's okay if your gluten-free crust doesn't look good. It's still gonna taste good. How could it not? There's all that butter in it. No one make fun of my pie making skills now. Be nice. If I can close these cracks. Yep. Okay, so now it's the moment of truth, where I'm going to try to convince this pie crust to go in the pie dish. Now, I was always taught to do the, like, roll it on the rolling pin thing, but I find both of these work equally as bad for me, so I go with this. So I flip it. Not too bad, just pinch together the cracks that formed, right? Like a puzzle piece to put the pieces that fell off the edge. Just gonna mush them up. So I'm making fun of my crust. It will taste good, I promise. Do you ever see those beautiful crusts? And they always show up before they're baked because I know they're not as pretty when they're baked. That's like a piece of art on top of their crust. One of these days, I wonder if I made pie all the time, if I would get better at it. Like I said, all this butter, I need to not be making pies all the time. Usually make like 3 pies for Thanksgiving and never the rest of the year. Although this year, I'm hoping in March. Did you know March 14th is Pie Day? Because it's 3.14 pi. Get it? So I'm going to have a pie party in which we're going to get a bunch of cheap crusts. Maybe like that. Maybe the gluten-free crust, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know if it has to be gluten-free for this. Well, there's going to be eating pie, and then there's going to be throwing pie. So that's what I'm hoping our number, because like you can be far away, 6 feet away, and throw pie. So I think we'll be good. We'll do it outside, and we'll just throw pie at each other. So I'll be making more pies in March. I find I'm not going to want a homemade pie crust for that because like I want to be able to take it out without it falling apart. Okay, now you're just like, I didn't need to know all this information about pie. Okay, let's see how our filling did. Quantity enough. Like I said, a lot of recipes are for a much smaller pie pan than mine. Oh, see, I should have did the rest of the sweet potato. I'm just going to add it now. So I wound up going with 2 sweet potatoes for the large pie. It's not that serious, you guys. It's just pie. So I wonder, you ever notice like some sweet potatoes are like the size of your head? These were 2 smaller sweet potatoes, which is why I wasn't sure how many to do for that. It'll be more pumpkin on the bottom and more sweet potato on top. What does Miss Fritzl say? Get messy, make mistakes. There's totally a third one. In the kitchen, there's lots of mistakes. But this will be delicious. Okay, so there we go. Here's my pie. Now it's got to go in the oven and cook for, I believe, 35 minutes. My oven's already preheated. You're not going to stay on a video with me for 35 more minutes and watch that come out of the oven. But, oh, I need, before I do that, oh, it's downstairs. I have a crust guard. So I'm going to put a crust guard on here, pop it in the oven, and then while it's baking, I'll be rolling out some sugar cookies. As you can see, I just have like a little bit of dough left out. If I wanted to roll it out and put some decorations on top, I absolutely could. So thanks for watching. This is the pie that won the competition. Hopefully it's at least almost as good as hers was. It was amazing. And thanks for watching. And until next time, mangia fresca.